On today's show, biggest takeaways and best moments from Houston Rockets Media Day. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. The comments help a ton. Swing by, say go Rockets. Share your favorite part of Media Day in the comments. Sincerely appreciate it. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. A couple shout outs to a couple different everydayers here at the top. Jai from Australia and Brandon, who I ran into at the Galveston Gumbo Festival thing this past weekend. Appreciate you guys for being everydayers. Thank you so much for the kind words. It means a lot. On today's show, we're going to get into kind of the biggest takeaways and reactions and funniest moments from Houston Rockets Media Day. But unfortunately, want to take a moment to share the really disappointing news, the passing of Dikembe Mutombo, who was not only a NBA Hall of Famer, NBA legend, but also just an incredible human being, a great humanitarian who did so much for the world. And it's just really unfortunate to hear of his passing. I don't know, there might be some younger Rockets fans that don't remember Deke's time with the Rockets. That was at the tail end of his illustrious career, but you'll remember, if you remember the 22-game win streak, I mean, Yao Ming went down halfway through that win streak, and Deke, you know, a 40-year-old, was able to step in and started playing in the starter spot to continue anchoring that team and get the team to 22 wins alongside Tracy McGrady and many other players on that squad. So the world is a worse place without Dikembe Mutombo in it. He did so much for the game of basketball, so much for humankind. It just sucks. There's no other way to put it. So thoughts and prayers go out to his family during this time. And we've lost a number of iconic, not only Rockets figures, but basketball figures it feels like in the last few months, last year or so. It really sucks. But let's go ahead and get into the takeaways for Rockets Media Day. And I think the big overarching takeaway, and this should be the most important thing that is taken away from this Media Day, if you walk away with anything, is that this Rockets team knows that there are no excuses anymore. It's playoff time. Last year, comparing and contrasting last year's Media Day to this one, there was a confidence in last year's team. There was a confidence that they were building something, that the veterans were going to help take them to the next level, that the young guys were ready to take a step forward, and there was a confidence that they were going to be a much more competitive team, but nobody wanted to put, you know, a win total number on it. Nobody wanted to say, yeah, we're definitely making the playoffs. Like, they were aspiring for the playoffs and like, yeah, we want to make the playoffs. We are pushing for the playoffs. We are striving to make the playoffs. That was kind of all the language used last year, right? This year, the language from everybody that was asked about expectations for the season or what a successful season looks like, all the way from Fred to Jalen to Alpi to Tari to Jabari to literally everybody that was asked about what the goals are for this season, it was, we are making the playoffs. There are no excuses. Talking about guys saying that you can't blame youth or inexperience or a new coaching staff. Like, none of those things matter anymore. Even Ime Udoka, when he was highlighting kind of this is Ime's first chance to return as a year 2 head coach, because when he was with Boston, he was there 1 year and then gone. And then he had his first year with the Rockets last year as a head coach. So this is his 3rd year in the NBA as a head coach. And this is his first year as a returning head coach. And so when he was asked, about what that means, the continuity is absolutely huge. He said the terminology, the teaching points, the newness of me and my staff, that takes time for certain guys, but now we can hit the ground running. Continuity is good, so we don't have to teach as much. Been there, done that, right? So that's no longer an excuse. The youth factor is no longer an excuse. Like the only player on this Rockets roster that can claim youth as an excuse at any point this upcoming season is going to be Reed Sheppard, because he's a rookie. Yes, Amin and Cam are still young, but they're also young, and they were impactful players on a winning team last year, a team that won 41 games, right? There shouldn't be any regression, hopefully, knock on wood, but for those guys. It's just, it is a night and day different kind of feeling that this team has about their confidence level of making the playoffs, and deservedly so. Like this team, there's a reason that Rafael Stone opted to just largely bring everybody back, right? The only major additions to this team are Steven Adams and Reed Sheppard, and then obviously you do get a healthy Tari Eason back, which is a really big part of the team, but he was still part of the team this past season. So bringing back 13 guys that were all the same from last year, 12 guys that were all the same from last year. I can't count. Math is hard. That's huge, right? The continuity element. This Rockets team is bringing back more returning players than any other team in the NBA because they feel good about this team. And they won 41 games this last year. They just barely missed the play-in. It should still be viewed, in my eyes, and many others, as a successful season. But this year, right, the bar has now shifted. The bar is not, just make the play-in. The bar is not, squeak in as the 9th or 10th seed and whatever. The bar is get to the playoffs. And not only get there, I thought Amin Thompson had a fantastic quote when I asked him about kind of goals, expectations for himself this season. He highlighted some individual things that he wanted to accomplish: all NBA defensive team, most improved player of the year, which are some lofty aspirations, especially if you're coming off a bench for any significant chunk of time in the season. It's going to be tough to achieve either of those awards for Amin. We'll see what he can do, and we'll ultimately see if he maybe slides into the starting role at some point. But then he was like, yeah, and make the playoffs. But then he adjusted his answer. He goes, from make the playoffs, he goes, no, not just make the playoffs. We want to thrive in the playoffs, right? And I thought that was a really cool answer from him, because that should be the mentality for this team, right? Is the mentality should be they are a good enough team to make it to the playoffs. Alperen Sengun flat out promised it, basically. He was like, we're making the playoffs. He was like, we have so much talent. We're making it to the playoffs. That's where we're going to be this year. Jalen Green said it too. Jalen Green said every day, he's talking about playoffs every day. That's the goal for this team, is get to the playoffs. And the veterans all know what it takes to get there. The young guys, they see what it takes to be a winning team now. And they have all the tools, all the talent, and all the resources to get there this season. So that should be the big number one takeaway, is that this team's mentality has shifted. They were a competitive team last year, but they didn't fully have their eyes. I don't want to say they didn't have their eyes set on the playoffs. They didn't want to guarantee it because they didn't know what the team was going to be yet. They know what this team is. They know how talented they are. They know how good they can be. They have to clean a few things up, and this team is headed for a successful postseason run. So that should be the big takeaway from Media Day, at least for me it was. Coming up, I want to get into some of the other specific quotes, different things that were discussed, as well as some of the funniest moments from Media Day and the Rockets social team already in full mid-season form. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you actually place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Head on over there, check out all the different odds this season, from division winners, season awards, conference winners, all that stuff, or just the outright Super Bowl favorites. Right now, the Chiefs are plus 500 to win it all. The 49ers plus 650, the Ravens plus 800, the Bills plus 1,000, the Lions at plus 1,100, and then your own Houston Texans in the top 6 to win the Super Bowl at plus 1,300. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, so ping pong around. I don't know. It's always like herding cats trying to, get through the media day interviews and figure out what to talk about and what not to talk about. I'll do my best to try and shed some light on each guy that had a chance to speak. I will say that media day, it feels like kind of like the first day of school. That's the analogy that I like to make when talking about media day, because it's the first time that the players have been working out with each other but it's the first time they're back in like a true like professional capacity, answering questions, wearing the jerseys. It's our first time back there as media, doing a press conference. It's the first time back for every major department that makes the Houston Rockets tick, right? It's PR, it's marketing, it's the social team, it's graphics and design, it's everybody under one roof. And for anybody who's curious, just a peek behind the curtain of how media day works, when I saw, went back and rewatched like the live stream that the Rockets hosted and saw a lot of commentary, and people were like, man, why is it taking so long between players and all this stuff? It's because the way media day works is the players have literally like 20 something different stations that they have to go throughout the entire day. The media room where they talk to us is one station that they deal with. They do 19, 20 different other things, like all of the in-stadium graphics, all the moments where you see like Jalen Green or Alperen Sengun pop up on the Jumbotron and they're like chanting, defense, like all those little things. All the things for social media, marketing, graphics, and design. They do all that stuff, all the photos, all the pictures, all the videography. They do it all on media day. That's when it happens. So shout out to Reed Sheppard, who showed up with a mustache. Every time you see Reed Sheppard throughout this season in his, ESPN headshots and all the graphics that the Rockets do, any of the fun stuff that they made him do for social media, he's gonna have that stash throughout the season. There's a reason that a couple years ago when Jimmy Butler decided to show up to media day with the crazy hairdo, the emo style look or whatever, that it was hilarious, and then like, it was actually frustrating because then ESPN switched it up in the middle of the season and stopped using his emo look for whatever reason. I don't know. Anyways, just that's a quick aside. But let's go ahead and get into some of the takeaways from what some of these guys had to say. I thought that Fred shared some great insight about both Amin Thompson and also Reed Sheppard. So when he was asked about Amin Thompson, or not specifically about Amin Thompson, he was asked who looks different from last season to this season, and he said Amin Thompson looks the most different. He said he definitely doesn't look like a rookie anymore. He said he's bigger, faster, stronger, more in control, and he also highlighted, he's like, I don't know if it's just because we're playing in an open gym and there's no referees and he's just able to like bully past us every single time, but he said he definitely doesn't look like a rookie anymore. That was a big one. And then he was also kind of asked about the kind of the pre-draft comps between Reed Sheppard and himself, and that how that would affect his mentoring process. And Fred highlighted that there's a lot of similarities in terms of pace and poise and his reads, his shooting ability. And again, this is something that we've had the chance to ask Reed plenty of different times about what it's going to be like to learn from Fred, to be on the same roster as him, all that stuff. So he's had a chance to answer it a couple different times. But for Fred, he really took it to heart that, hey, like this kid has a very similar skill set to my own. And he highlighted, hey, it's my job to speed up his development process, right? To get Reed to where he wants to be. And I think that was a common kind of theme across the day. Whenever anybody was asked about Reed, kind of the early impressions, their early takeaways from playing with him, from seeing him on the court, seeing him in action, the early takeaways were he's incredibly poised and his basketball IQ is through the roof. Jabari Smith Jr. went so far as to say that he was like, I wasn't that smart, or my IQ wasn't where his is as a rookie. And kind of highlighting where Reed is at and how advanced he is for his age. Fred VanVleet also highlighted, he was like, I wasn't that talented coming into the league. So he said that Reed is starting from a much higher spot than he did. Now, I will say that later on in the day, Reed Sheppard, the final interview of the day, I got the chance to ask Reed about what it means to be able to kind of have Fred as a mentor, right? To be able to learn from a guy that, and kind of piggybacking off of the earlier sentiments that Fred shared. And Reed said, anytime we're on the floor together, he talks to me the whole time. I think he's going to be someone I can trust to tell me the right thing and not just what I want to hear. And I think that's big, right? Reed is not a guy that wants things sugarcoated. He wants to know what's what. He wants to be coached, and that coachability is going to take him a very, very long way, right? Especially as a rookie coming into a situation where the expectation is to win and to win at a high level and to make it to the playoffs. There was a lot of praise showered, or Reed Sheppard was showered with a lot of praise from his teammates. None more so than maybe even Jalen Green, who was highlighting the fact that with Reed Sheppard, I mean, he basically said that Reed is going to be a kind of a winning player, or at least that he is going to be an impactful rookie right out of the gate. He said specifically with his shot making, he'll space the floor a lot. He has a high IQ. He knows how to make that corner pass when he gets in the pocket. He's got a nice floater, which opens up the game for him if he hits his shots. He had some glowing praise about Reed and what his impact is going to be as a rookie. So for anybody who doesn't think, again, that Reed Sheppard is going to have a pretty massive role on this Rockets team right out of the gate, it's going to happen. He's going to play significant minutes for this team early on as the backup for Fred VanVleet. Now, some of the other spots in here, there were so of course, Rafael Stone was asked about the contract situations for Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green. He opted not to answer those because he doesn't talk about player contracts. He said it with a big old smile, as he always does. The players themselves were asked about the contract situation. So Jalen, when asked, was basically like, he's like, that's not the focus right now. If it gets done, it gets done. He's like, of course I want to be here. I love Houston. And then Alperen Sengun was a little bit more direct, a little bit more upfront about the contract situation. He basically was straight up. He's saying that he wants the contract to get done, that he wants to be here, that his people are working on it, that they're talking about the contract. And so we'll see ultimately if it gets done. The Rockets have until the 21st of the month to handle the contract situation for either of those guys, but all signs have been pointing to for a while now that they're not going to do it. So unless something drastic changes, then that's going to be the continued situation. Elsewhere, double checking my notes here. I kind of want to roll through some of these others. Let's go Steven Adams for a minute, because I really thought of all the media interviews that we got, I think it was a toss up between Steven Adams and probably Tari Eason for maybe best interview, I guess. Best quotes, best interactions. Steven Adams is a massive man. He's just a big dude. Like, he rolls up in there and he steps over the chair and then sits down on it. But he's not only just like Steven Adams is good for a funny quote here and there, and he's a funny dude and he definitely checks the vibes quota, but he's also incredibly insightful. He shed some light on what it means, or I guess what playing against Alperen Sengun, what he's learned, I guess, from playing against Alperen Sengun. He said he's got a lot of good tools. And he went on to explain that Sengun and kind of his unorthodox style of play, right? That his body language, the way he moves on the court, you don't expect it, right? It's not traditional. And that makes it really hard to play against him because you don't really ever know what he's going to do. It's really hard to read what his next move is going to be. I got the chance to ask Adams about playing alongside other elite guards like Russell Westbrook and Ja Morant, and how, if there's any similarities in how they play the game to a guy like Jalen Green, and how his game can complement or help Jalen Green the same way that it did for those guys. And Adams gave a really insightful answer, basically highlighting the fact, hey, that a lot of people look at Russ and Ja, and by extension a guy like Jalen, right, and they see, oh, okay, they're crazy athletic, right, and that's where the comparisons kind of stop. But he pointed out the fact that they are very different players, and that the way that they play the game is incredibly different from one another. That Russ is a very different player than Ja's a very different player from Russ, and Jalen's a very different player from either of them. And he went on to say that for his partnership with Jalen, and not just Jalen, but for any of the guards on the Rockets team, that it's about him learning what they like and what they don't like, about him building that chemistry, building that partnership with them, to understand things like how to set a certain screen, where they like their screen set, where to operate with them on the floor, what to expect when they have the ball, what to expect when he has the ball, all these different things. And I thought it was a really incredibly insightful answer from Steven Adams. And then he went back into Steven Adams mode, and he at the very end, he was like, I don't know, I'll just be out there hitting some dudes. And so I need to go pull some sound bites, because there were a lot of good sound bites from Media Day. I haven't had the time to parse through all of them and put them on the soundboard for very liberal use throughout the entirety of the season. If there were some favorite quotes, if you had some favorite quotes from Media Day that you think would be good on the soundboard, please drop a line in the comments. Tell me what quotes they need to pull. Help me keep track of it, because I'll be completely honest, it was a blur of a day. It was 3 straight hours. It was 14 different player interviews. It's the most player interviews we've ever done as in my time of being a Rockets media member. It was a lot. I literally didn't get up off my chair for 3 hours. It was brutal. It was a tragedy just sitting for 3 hours. No, I kid. All right. Coming up, I want to get into some final thoughts from some of these other guys. We got a lot of other quotes that I want to get to, as well as some of the funny stuff from Media Day. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different ticketing offers. But that's not the only feature that GameTime has that's incredible. They've got their GameTime ticket covers, the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. They've got their lowest price guarantee, views from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect when you get to your venue. But my personal favorite, their all-in pricing feature. When you download the GameTime app, you toggle on their all-in pricing feature. They will show you your price upfront, fully transparent, throughout the whole process. Because I don't know about you, my least favorite thing when you're buying tickets to a game or a concert or whatever, you go through the whole process, and then at the very end, they hit you with like the digital handling fee and the service charges and all this other stuff, and you end up paying more in fees than you do for your actual tickets. It sucks, right? Doesn't happen with GameTime. You toggle on the all-in pricing feature. They show you what you're going to pay up front throughout the whole process, so you don't get price gouged at the very end. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Okay. One more thing on Steven Adams. This is important. I left y'all hanging in the last segment. Steven Adams did say that he is not on a minutes restriction, so no medical restrictions for Steven Adams. He did, however, say that his rehab process is a 2-year process. So he just has to be careful in kind of not how much he plays, but more so, I guess, how he plays is how he put it. So I think that that's an important thing to note, is that the Rockets aren't going to have to, and I'm sure they'll still take it easy. I think they'll still take it easy with Steven Adams ultimately, but no minutes restriction for him is going to be huge. Again, he's only expected to probably play like that 15, 20 minutes a night role, maybe a little bit more in certain matchups. But yeah, we'll ultimately see how the Rockets decide to handle him. Elsewhere, I think Jalen Green, he highlighted the fact that this Rockets team is expected to play a lot faster this upcoming season. He said, I'm a fast player. I like pace. I like space. And we've got a lot of athletes on the team, right? He was highlighting the fact that the Rockets did play a lot faster to end last season, and that, playing faster to start this upcoming season is going to be a lot better. Ime Udoka did the same thing, and kind of highlighting that, and I think Fred talked about it too, that they played a lot slower, right, to start the year last season, because they were working on cleaning certain things up and all that good stuff, and really playing a slower brand of basketball, playing a lot through Alperen Sengun in the post, things like that. But it sounds like this year they're going to come in with more of an emphasis on playing faster, playing with more pace, and really trying to hone in on the things that they were good at last season, which Ime talked about, go from being top 10 in certain categories to maybe top 5 this season defensively, but then also getting better at some of the other areas where they dropped the ball a little bit, specifically offensively last season. So that was encouraging to hear from them. Let me roll through these notes really quick. Tari Eason, man. Tari was so... Tari talked about when he said he was getting back on the court after his long injury rehab. He said, words can't really describe how happy I am to be back playing basketball again. He said, I damn near cried. And you just feel it, right? Like and imagine, put yourself in Tari's shoes, right? You're watching your team win 41 games. They're playing competitive basketball, and they're it's a night and day difference from his rookie season playing under Steven Silas, and you only get to be a part of it for a quarter of the season, right? You're sitting there on the sidelines for most of it. That had to have sucked. So for Tari, I'm very excited to have him back in the rotation, and happy for him as just a person, that he gets to be back out there playing the game that he loves. He did mention that when he was out, he got to see the game from a different perspective. And so I followed up with him on that. I said, what were some of the things that you learned, by sitting out? What were some of the specific things that you picked up on? He said he really understood like reading the low man and how to, anticipate, like, okay, if two guys are here, then, okay, you have to move to this guy, and like how to close out. So just him highlighting, some picking up on some different defensive principles, I think will help him even better than it'll make him an even better defender than what he already is, right? We already know Tari is a great defender, but he's had moments where he's gambled, where he plays passing lanes. He's a defensive disruptor. So we'll see kind of how much of a better defender he is just from all the time that he got to watch the game and learn from film last season, as opposed to actually being out there playing in real time. Elsewhere, oh, and Tari, I got Tari a non-basketball question. Tried to ask him his favorite movie, because Tari's a huge cinephile. He loves movies. And he drew a blank. I tried to ask him what his favorite movie was since the last time we talked to him. And he was drawing a blank. And then he pulled the Uno reverse card on me and tried to hit me with my favorite movie. And I was drawing so many blanks. I watched The Departed for the first time this past season. And that was, or this past year, I should say. Incredible movie. Flat out 10 out of 10. The ending of The Departed left my jaw on the floor. But if that doesn't count because it's not a quote unquote new movie from this past year, then I'm going to go with Deadpool and Wolverine, or The Wild Robot, which I just saw the other day and I cried. That movie was so good. Go see The Wild Robot if you haven't seen it yet. It's so amazing. DreamWorks does it yet again. Want to speed through this. God, there's so many different, we're not gonna be able to get to everything on today's show, guys. I'm so sorry. Like, it's impossible to get through 14 different players worth of quotes and like making sure that we highlight every important thing that happened. Let me see if I can get through these. Jabari Smith Jr. talked about getting stronger, staying low and working on his ball handling. And when asked about where he'd like to operate more from this season, he said around the basket, right? Basically, it sounds like Jabari wants to play bigger than he's played in the past. He knows that he's a capable shooter, and opposing teams know that he's a capable shooter from the perimeter, from the mid-range. And so if he can improve his ability around the basket, both driving and finishing around the rim, just being strong, playing around the rim, then he said that it'll hopefully make him a more well-rounded player, a more dynamic player, so that he can play at the rim, everything like that, get to the free throw line a little bit more. So that was great to hear from Jabari Smith Jr. Jae'Sean Tate joked about spending more time at the training facility than he did at his actual house, which was funny. I asked Cam Whitmore what specifically he was, trying to improve on this season, or this offseason. He said that he was really working on becoming more of a two-way player, and then highlighted the fact that he wants to become a true three-level scorer, and not just rely on his three ball and attacking the rim, that he's working on his mid-range game, his dribble pull-ups, his floaters. So sounds like Cam may have some counters to go to in the mid-range this season. He was also asked by the Podfather, Ben Dubose, what he brings to the table that is unique of the Rockets bench unit, since there's going to be such a competition for minutes this upcoming season. He said his scoring ability is incredibly unique in that nobody else scores the way that he scores. And I thought that was a pretty cool, Cam understands what he brings to the table as a player. He understands that scoring the ball is going to be a really big part of his game. So I appreciated that kind of insight from Cam. Let me go through here. Got Jabari done. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. I want to double check all my quotes here. I've got like a laundry list of different things that I want to tackle. Alperen Sengun did talk about the importance of having the coaching staff sent over to Turkey with him, to have Cam Hodges over there with him every day. He said that Cam's kind of an intense guy. So having him there every day, practicing morning, noon, and night, getting all that work in, it was really big for him. And so, yeah, I mean, I think for Alperen Sengun, that's going to be a big part for him, is the fact that he was a big sneeze in the middle of the show. Love that. Having the coaching staff there with Alperen Sengun shows a commitment to him, that they wanted him to get better. And I think it's also important that they didn't just let him like go home to Turkey and slack off for a couple months, right? Like he was there with a crew, with a team, and they were working literally every single day to make sure that he comes in, you know, as the best version of himself this season, to build on an already successful season last year. So that was a really big thing as well. Double check. There's a couple funny moments that I want to get to. Obviously, Reed Sheppard with the mustache was unbelievable, right? We went from the scraggly beard. Well, he was babyface, clean shaven when we first saw him, then the scraggly beard, now the mustache. He said he'll probably get rid of it before the season starts. But Stash Sheppard, I think he's got to keep it. I think it looks incredible. And the jokes were flying like hotcakes with the mustache with Reed Sheppard. My goodness, Reed was so funny. I think a couple of the funny moments, just because I think I've tackled everything like of note. I don't think I missed anything. Again, I apologize if I did, guys. It's so much to try and get through in just one 30-minute episode. It's just I'm like parsing through some of the funny different moments now, and I'll just get to the funny stuff here at the end. There was the Reed Sheppard on the way out of his presser. I asked him, I was like, are they letting you play country music in the locker room yet? And he goes, no. Like a hard no. And everybody got a good kick out of that. It was Aaron Holiday's birthday during media day. So we sang happy birthday to Aaron Holiday as he got to the podium. So that was fun. Steven Adams is just a total fool. He walked in and there was a water under the table, and that water's there for whoever wants it. It's an unopened bottle of water, and pretty much none of the players wound up using it. Steven Adams was like, is this my secret water? And they were like, yeah, if you want it. And then when he was leaving, he was like, does anybody want this water? I don't want it. And they were like, just take it with you. And he's like, I don't want it. It might be spiked. And so we were like, the water's closed, dude. It was just silly moments all around. It was a lot of fun. And I did notice a lot of guys were wearing like the little left armband, like Alperen Sengun wore it. And when I pointed it out, I was like, new accessory. And he was like, yeah, for Hakeem the Dream. And I was like, are you going to keep it this season? He's like, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But I think the funniest thing to come out of media day, bar none, and I got to run this clip back before we wrap up the show, was the Rockets social media team having the players play pass the phone with each other. And so that's what we're going to get to here to wrap up the show, is the Rockets playing pass the phone on media day.
What's up, guys? I'm Jalen Green. I'm passing the phone to someone who always got their hair braided.
My name's Tari, and I'm passing the phone to someone with the worst mini fro in the NBA.
What's up? This is Jabari. I'm passing the phone to somebody who does not own a pair of jeans.
What's up? It's Thompson, and I'm passing the phone to somebody who's older than my great-grandparents.
Hi, I'm Jeff Green, and I'm passing the phone to somebody who looks like Maui and Jason Momoa.
My name is Stephen Adams. I'm passing the phone to someone who has overstayed on his visa.
Hey, I'm Jock, Landale. I'm passing to the phone to somebody who has the worst selection of pants I've ever seen in my life.
Hey guys, this is Alperen Sengun. I'm passing this phone to villain of the team.
I'm Dillon Brooks, the villain, and I'm passing the phone to somebody who takes a lot of shots.
I'm Cam, and I'm passing the phone to somebody who wants to settle down.
I'm Jae'Sean Tate, and I'm passing the phone to the guy with all the bread.
Fred VanVleet, I'm passing the phone to the Rook.
I'm Reed Sheppard. I'm not passing the phone to anyone. Let's go Rockets. Have a good season.
I just got to say, some of these were so out of pocket. Like, I really want to know, and I'm going to have to talk to the social. I want to know how they did this, if they gave the players complete creative freedom on some of these lines, because Amin Thompson, first of all, Amin with like his straight, like poker face, locked in gaze, just completely throwing Uncle Jeff Green under the bus, older than my great grandparents. That's brutal. He said Jeff Green's an ancestor at this point. And then Steven Adams with the Visa line for Jock Landale. That one was out of pocket. Tari's was out of pocket talking about Jabari's mini fro. They were all of these were so funny across the board. I just thought that was a great little fun way to showcase all the different players. And I gotta say, throughout the season, the Dillon Brooks into Cam Whitmore, a guy who takes a lot of shots, and then it cutting to Cam, and he's just cheesing into the camera, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Cam." Like, somebody's already clipped that to where it goes a lot of shots into hi, I'm Cam, and then the clip just ends. That is going to do absolute numbers at various points of the season. Like the first game where Cam takes I don't know, 3 to 5 shots within a minute or two off the bench, that clip's gonna resurface guaranteed. But want to know your favorite parts from Rockets Media Day? What were the standout moments? What were the important things that you wanted to highlight, that you took note of? Let me know in the YouTube comments. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube, just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.